"Mom, you're going to rot in here, you miserable woman." Those were the last words my daughter Christina said to me before abandoning me in a nursing home on my 67th birthday. Hello, my name is Elizabeth. If you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel and take a moment to tell me where you're listening from. It was a sunny Tuesday in March 2024, and I woke up feeling hopeful. After all, turning 67 is a special milestone. I had baked a simple lemon pound cake, my favorite, and laid the dining table with the embroidered cloth my mother had left me. I arranged flowers from my garden in an antique vase and waited patiently. I was waiting for my only daughter Christina to arrive so we could celebrate together. What I didn't expect was that she would come, but not to wish me well. When the doorbell rang at 2 far in the afternoon, I hurried to the door, smiling. I went to see her expecting a hug, maybe some flowers, or just a simple happy birthday, Mom. But instead I found Christina with her husband Jason, both wearing serious expressions and carrying a black folder under his arm. My daughter looked different, cold, with a look I had never seen in her during the 42 years since I brought her into the world. "Mom, we need to talk," Christina said without even stepping inside. "You're not going to live in this house anymore." Her words cut like knives. There was no greeting, no happy birthday, nothing at all. Just that cold, precise statement. Jason stayed behind her, staring at the floor, unable to look at me. I felt as if the world had stopped. "What did you say, dear?" I managed to ask, though my voice was trembling. "What are you talking about?" Christina stepped into the house, gently pushing me aside, as if I were an obstacle in her way. She opened the black folder on the dining room table, exactly where I had placed my mother's embroidered tablecloth and the garden flowers. She continued in a quiet, mechanical tone. "We've made a decision. You're getting old and forgetful. The other day you left the oven on last week. You fell in the bathroom. You can't keep living alone." My mind hurried to recall these events she mentioned. The oven being left on never happened. The fall in the bathroom never occurred. They were all lies. Carefully crafted lies, to justify something I still didn't fully understand, but which was starting to take shape in my thoughts. "Christina, I didn't leave the oven on, and I didn't fall in any bathroom." "What is really going on here?" I asked, the frustration and worry building in my chest. "Mom, don't argue," she cut in sharply with an impatient wave of her hand. "It's already settled. We're taking you to the St. Joseph's residence. It's a clean, comfortable place with nurses available all day and night. You'll receive better care there." I glanced at the papers she had spread out on my table, admission forms, medical authorizations, and legal documents. Everything was already prepared. Everything was decided without my input. It was my birthday, and my own daughter had come to take me away from my home. "But, honey, this is my house," I argued, feeling tears welling up. "I lived here with your father. We raised you here. All my memories are here. You can't just remove me like this." Christina sighed as if I were a stubborn child. "Mom, this house is too large for you alone. The garden needs work. The stairs are unsafe. The costs are high. The best solution is to sell it, and with that money, we can cover the nursing home and other expenses." At last, the truth was clear. It wasn't about my health or safety. It was about my house. This property downtown is currently valued at around $480,000. My late husband Anthony and I purchased this house 40 years ago when it was almost worthless. Over the years, and as the neighborhood developed, it has become quite valuable. Christina didn't seem concerned about me. Instead, she was worried about getting control of my assets. "I won't sell my house, Christina," I said, trying to sound as firm as I could. "And I'm not going to a nursing home. This is my home, and I have every right to stay here." Instantly, my daughter's face changed. The mask of motherly concern vanished, replaced by something dark and frightening, something that deeply unsettled me. "You're not in a position to make decisions, Mom," she said in a cold tone. "The van will be here in an hour to take you. Everything is arranged." 1 hour. They were giving me just 1 hour to say goodbye to my life, my home, everything I had known. I looked around my living room, taking in the photographs on the walls that showed a lifetime of memories. The furniture Anthony and I had chosen together, the sofa where I had breastfed Christina as a baby, all of it was about to be taken from me. "You can't do this," I whispered. But even as I spoke, I understood it was no use. Christina had already made her decision. During that hour, I tried to reason with her, hoping to make her see sense. I reminded her of all the years I worked hard to give her a good life. I told her how I stayed up late sewing dresses for neighbors after Anthony passed away 20 years ago. I explained how I saved every dollar so she could go to college. I also told her how I sold my own jewelry when she needed money for her wedding to Jason, yet none of that seemed to matter now. Her eyes only focused on the house and the money it represented. When the white van arrived bearing the St. Joseph's Residence logo, I realized I had no more options left. I lacked the strength to fight physically, and tears had become so uncontrollable that I could hardly speak clearly. I quickly packed a small suitcase with the essentials, some clothes, photographs, and personal documents. My hands shook as I folded each item and tucked away each memory into that limited space. My entire life was compressed into one suitcase. Just before they placed me in the van, Christina leaned in and whispered those words into my ear. I will never forget. Mom, you're going to rot in here, you miserable woman. She spoke so quietly that Jason and the driver couldn't hear, but I did. Every word was carved into my soul like a branding iron. My own daughter, the child I carried in my womb for 9 months, whom I fed from my breast, whom I had comforted through countless sleepless nights, was wishing me dead in the cruelest way possible. Yet, in that moment, instead of falling apart entirely, something strange occurred. I felt a smile beginning to form on my lips. A small, genuine smile appeared on my face because I knew something Christina did not. Something that would completely change the situation in just 3 days. My younger sister, my dear Dorothy, had passed away last month in Chicago after a long illness. Dorothy never married or had children, but she led an extraordinary life as a successful real estate businesswoman. 3 weeks ago, I received a call from Michael, the lawyer managing Dorothy's affairs. Mrs. Elizabeth, he said gravely, your sister named you as the sole beneficiary of her entire estate. We need to meet to finalize the paperwork. At first, I didn't grasp how significant this was. Dorothy had always lived modestly in a small apartment and drove an old car. She never boasted about wealth or possessions. But when Michael showed me the documents, I almost fainted in his office. My sister had built up an astonishing fortune, $16 million spread across commercial properties, stock market investments, savings accounts, and government bonds. That figure, $16 million, was almost beyond my understanding. Dorothy had been a careful investor for 40 years, buying properties when the timing was right and selling them when the market values were high. She was a talented businesswoman who quietly lived her life. Michael explained that the final paperwork would be ready to sign within a week. Once I signed, the funds would be transferred to my bank accounts in about 3 business days. I quickly calculated in my mind. The meeting with Michael was scheduled for the following Thursday, which was 3 days after my birthday. This meant that exactly 3 days after Christina left me in the nursing home, I would become a woman with $16 million. I decided not to tell anyone about the inheritance, not Christina, nor my 2 grandchildren, Luke and Chloe. I wanted to see how my family would act without the influence of money. I needed to know if Christina loved me for who I am, or just saw me as a source of resources. Now, sitting in that van heading to the nursing home while my daughter and her husband stayed in my house, probably already planning how to empty and sell it, I finally had my answer. A painful but clear answer. The trip to St. Joseph's Residence took about 30 minutes. I looked out the window, watching my neighborhood, my familiar streets, my entire life slowly fading away. The driver, an older man with gray hair, tried to make small talk, but I couldn't respond. My words were caught in my throat, along with the knot of pain and betrayal inside me. When we arrived, the building was exactly as Christina had described. Clean, modern, with well-maintained gardens. But no architecture or appearance could make up for the fact that I was there against my will. A young nurse named Martha welcomed me at the reception desk with a warm, professional smile. She then led me to my room, a small but clean space with a single bed, a wardrobe, a chair, and a window that looked out onto the garden. You'll be comfortable here, Mrs. Elizabeth, Martha said kindly and sincerely. If you need anything, just press the call button. I nodded silently, gazing at the room that was now my world. 4 white walls replacing a mansion filled with memories and life. That first night in the nursing home felt like the longest night I had ever experienced. I lay in that unfamiliar bed, sheets smelling of hospital disinfectant, and cried quietly. I cried for the daughter I had lost, for the betrayal I had endured over the 67 years I had lived, bringing me to this moment of complete solitude. Yet, amid the tears, another feeling was growing within me, determination. Christina believed she had beaten me, thought she had left me powerless and with no options left, but in 3 days, everything would change. As I closed my eyes that night, feeling heartbroken but with a clearer mind, I knew that this story was only just beginning. The first light of dawn was filtering through the window of my room at St. Joseph's residence when I woke up that Wednesday. I had hardly slept a few hours. My thoughts kept replaying every detail of what had happened the day before. I gazed at the white ceiling, so different from my bedroom at home, where an antique lamp installed by Anthony many years ago used to be. Every small detail served as a reminder that I was no longer in my own home, that my own family had pulled me away from it. I slowly got up and walked to the shared bathroom at the end of the hall. Other residents were already awake. Some used canes to stand, others sat quietly in wheelchairs. They all had the same look of acceptance, as if they had resigned themselves to the fact that this would be their final place. But I was different from them. I carried a secret in my chest, burning like a flame of hope and justice. In just 2 days, my life would change forever. After breakfast, watery coffee and dry toast, I returned to my room and took my cell phone out of my suitcase. Thank goodness Christina hadn't thought to take it from me. She probably assumed a 67-year-old woman wouldn't know how to use it for anything important. How mistaken she was. I looked up Michael's number in my contacts. He was my sister Dorothy's lawyer. I needed to confirm that everything was still on schedule. In 2 days, I would gain access to the $16 million that could change everything. Mrs. Elizabeth, good morning. Michael answered with his professional, friendly tone. I was just about to call you today. We have the meeting scheduled for tomorrow, Thursday at 10 in the morning, at my office, to sign the final inheritance documents. I explained my situation, mentioning that I was now confined to a nursing home against my will, and that my daughter had taken advantage of what she thought was my vulnerability to lock me there. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Michael said, Mrs. Elizabeth, this is very serious, but legally you are not incapacitated. You can leave that place whenever you want. Tomorrow I will arrange a car to pick you up for the meeting, and after signing the documents, we will need to take legal steps to protect your interests. I asked him to keep the inheritance confidential. I didn't want Christina to find out yet. I wanted to see how far she was willing to go. I needed to observe her behavior and gather proof of her betrayal before revealing my new financial situation. After ending the call with Michael, I sat on the bed, reflecting on all the years I had spent raising Christina. I remembered when she was a young girl with blonde curls and bright eyes, hugging me and saying I was the best mom in the world. I recalled the night she fell ill, how I stayed awake beside her, gently placing cold cloths on her forehead while she had a fever, soothing her through her nightmares. I thought back to her college graduation, how I wept with pride as I watched her receive her diploma, but I also remembered other moments I had overlooked or justified at the time. I recalled how, at 16, she yelled at me, saying she hated our modest house and that all her friends lived in nicer places. I remembered how, at 20, she demanded I buy her a new car, threatening not to visit if I didn't. I remembered her wedding to Jason 15 years ago, when she barely thanked me for paying half of the celebration, which had cost me the last of my mother's jewelry. The signs had always been there. I simply chose not to see them. Or perhaps I did see them, but I justified it, believing it was my fault for not giving her enough. That as a mother, I was supposed to sacrifice more. Now, sitting in that nursing home room, I realized I had raised a selfish and manipulative daughter, and worst of all, part of the blame was mine for never setting clear boundaries, never telling her no, always putting her wishes above my own dignity. Around midday, one of the nurses knocked on my door. Mrs. Elizabeth, you have a call at the reception. It's your daughter. My heart immediately raced. I went downstairs to the reception where they handed me the landline. Mom, it's me, Christina said calmly, with no sign of guilt or remorse. I'm just calling to let you know that we've started moving some things out of the house. We need space to store our belongings while the sale is being finalized. My blood boiled. Barely a day had gone by since she left me here, and she was already clearing out my home. Christina, those things are mine, I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. You have no right to touch anything. She sighed impatiently. Mom, don't start with the drama. It's just old furniture. Besides, we need to sell the house quickly. Jason found a serious buyer who can pay in cash. In a couple of weeks, everything will be settled. A couple of weeks. She was giving me only a few weeks before completely taking away my life, my past, everything I built together. We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks, I said calmly, surprising even myself. Christina seemed to notice something unusual in my tone because there was a short pause before she responded. "What do you mean by that?" she asked cautiously. "Nothing, dear, just that life has a strange way of unfolding." And I hung up before she could answer. That afternoon, while the other residents watched television in the common room, I sat in the garden with a notebook I'd found in the room. I began making a list of everything I needed to do once I gained access to Dorothy's inheritance. First, I had to immediately revoke the power of attorney I had given Christina 5 years earlier, when I believed it might be helpful to have someone handle banking matters if I became ill. That document allowed her to access my accounts and papers. I needed to cancel it right away. Second, I planned to block all credit cards linked to my main account. Christina had an extra card that I paid for, which she used freely for her expenses. If she was truly going to learn a lesson, she needed to experience what it was like to support herself financially. Third, I wanted to contact a trusted real estate agent to put my house up for sale myself before Christina could take any legal action. Although the property was in my name, I didn't underestimate her ability to cause trouble. The fourth and most important step was to prepare a new will. The one I made 10 years ago left everything to Christina as my sole heir, but after what she did, abandoning me on my birthday and harshly saying she no longer deserves a single dollar of my estate, I was now confident I would decide carefully who would inherit the $16 million plus the value of my house. Perhaps I would leave it to charities that genuinely support elderly people in need. Or maybe I would set up a foundation in Dorothy's name. Writing in that notebook, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Power. For many years, I had felt small and dependent, always trying to please Christina to earn her love. Now, with this unexpected inheritance, everything had changed. I was in control. I had the means. I could choose my own path forward without relying on anyone. It was both an overwhelming and frightening experience at once. That evening, as I ate in the nursing home dining room with other residents, I watched their tired faces and slow movements. Many of them had probably been abandoned by their families, left here to be cared for by others, while their children continued their lives without the responsibility of aging parents. I wondered how many of them had daughters like Christina. How many had been betrayed by the very family they had once loved and protected with all their heart? A woman sitting beside me named Rose asked how long I had been there. I told her honestly it was only my second day. She nodded with understanding. The first few days are the hardest, but you get used to it. I've been here for 3 years. 3 years? I couldn't picture myself being confined in this place that long. Rose must have noticed my reaction because she added, "My son visits me every month. He is a kind boy. He simply lives far away and has many responsibilities." However, I had heard that story before, about children who are far from home, overwhelmed with work, promising to visit soon but never following through. The excuses that parents accept are easier to believe than the painful reality of neglect. I didn't judge Rose for holding on to that story. It was probably the only thing keeping her grounded in this place, but I refused to do the same. I wouldn't stay here accepting mere scraps of affection from a daughter who had turned away from me. Later, in my room, I received a text message from my grandson, Luke. "Grandma, Mom told me, you're in a nursing home because you fell and need help. Are you okay?" My heart tightened. Christina had lied to her own children about what had happened. Luke, who was 15, was old enough to know the truth, but his sister Chloe, only 12, was not. I didn't want to involve the children in this situation just yet. I simply responded, "I'm okay, sweetheart. Don't worry about Grandma." The truth was, I missed my grandchildren more than anything. Luke, with his love for football and endless questions about what life was like when I was young. Chloe, passionate about reading and always ready with a spontaneous hug. They were innocent in all of this. They weren't responsible for having a manipulative mother. I promised myself that once everything was settled, once I had sorted out things with Christina, I would find a way to stay connected with Luke and Chloe. They deserved to have their grandmother in their lives. That night, just before going to bed, I took out an old photograph from my suitcase that I always carried. It was a picture of my sister Dorothy and me when we were young, probably about 20 years ago. We were on a beach in Chicago, smiling at the camera, with the sea in the background. Dorothy's eyes sparkled with that unique combination of intelligence and determination that always defined her. "Thank you, little sister," I whispered as I looked at the photo. "Thank you for giving me the chance to regain my dignity." Dorothy was always the stronger of the two. While I married young and dedicated my life to my family, she chased her business ambitions with fierce determination. She never apologized for prioritizing her career. She never let anyone make her feel lesser for not following the traditional path of marriage and children. And even now, after her death, she continued to care for me. She still provided me with the tools to stand up for myself. It was her last gift, and I intended not to waste it. Thursday morning arrived with a gray sky and the possibility of rain. I dressed carefully, selecting the best dress I had packed in my suitcase, along with the pearl necklace Anthony had given me for our 20th anniversary. If I was going to sign documents that would make me a multimillionaire, I wanted to do so with dignity. At 9:30 in the morning, as he had promised, a black car sent by Michael arrived at the entrance of St. Joseph's residence. The driver, a young and courteous man, opened the rear door for me. "Good morning, Mrs. Elizabeth. Mr. Michael sent me to pick you up." I entered the vehicle feeling unexpectedly important during the 40-minute drive to the downtown area where the lawyer's office was located. I looked out the window at the city that had been my home for many years. Soon, I would have the financial power to do anything I chose, go anywhere I wished. Freedom was just a signature away. Michael's office was on the third floor of an elegant building, right in the city center. His secretary greeted me kindly and offered coffee while I waited. A few minutes later, Michael emerged from his office with a professional smile and invited me inside. For the next 2 hours, we reviewed all the documents related to Dorothy's inheritance, including commercial properties in Chicago, my city, and New York, bank accounts in 3 different banks, stock market investments, and government bonds. The total amount is exactly $16,300,000. Once you sign these papers, Mrs. Elizabeth, the transfer will start immediately, Michael explained. In about 3 business days, everything will be in your name and ready to use. 3 business days. That meant that by the following Monday, I would officially be a wealthy woman. I signed each document with a trembling hand, knowing that every signature permanently changed my future. When we finished, Michael picked up another folder from his desk. "Now, let's discuss the legal steps we need to take to protect you." I explained the situation in detail. The power of attorney granted to Christina, the extra credit cards, and the risk of selling my house. Michael took careful notes, his face becoming more serious. "The first thing we'll do today is cancel that power of attorney," he said with conviction. "Then we will contact your bank to block all cards linked to your account, except for your personal one. Regarding the house, since it is in your name, no one can sell it without your approval. However, I recommend that we change the locks immediately." Before leaving his office, I asked Michael for one more service. "I need to prepare a new will that completely excludes my daughter." Michael looked at me with understanding and a touch of sadness, likely having seen similar cases many times in his career. "Certainly, Mrs. Elizabeth. I will prepare a draft for you to review. Do you have someone specific in mind to inherit your assets?" I paused briefly. "I want to establish a foundation to assist elderly people abandoned by their families. The rest of the estate can be donated to local charities." When I returned to St. Joseph's residence that afternoon, I felt like a completely different person from the one who had left that morning. I had a well-defined plan, unlimited resources to carry it out, and, most importantly, I had reclaimed my power to make decisions. I was no longer the helpless victim Christina believed was wasting away in a nursing home. I was a woman with $16 million and a firm resolve to seek justice. That night, while the other residents slept, I stayed awake, watching the moon through my window. In 2 days, once all the money was in my accounts, I would move to the next stage of my plan, and Christina would realize that underestimating her mother had been the most expensive mistake of her life. Friday morning arrived with bright sunshine, in stark contrast to the storm I was about to unleash on Christina's life. I woke early, feeling more rested than I had in days. It was reassuring to know I had complete control over the situation, that every part of the plan was falling into place exactly as I had envisioned. Today marked the beginning of my carefully planned execution. After breakfast, I called Michael from my room's phone. "Good morning, Mrs. Elizabeth. I have wonderful news. The money transfer was completed early this morning. The $16,000 to $300,000 are now in your main account." My heart skipped a beat. It was real. It was all completely real. It was no longer just a promise for the future. It was my actual present. Michael then said that he had already taken care of canceling your daughter's power of attorney. From now on, she has no legal access to any of your documents or accounts. I asked him to take the next step immediately, which was to contact my bank and block all cards linked to my accounts, except my personal one. He assured me he would handle it personally within the next hour, We also talked about how to sell my house. I know a very good and discreet real estate agent, he told me. If you agree, we could have the property on the market this afternoon. Given its prime location, it shouldn't take long to find serious buyers. At 2703, I gave him my full approval. I wanted everything to happen quickly before Christina could respond or attempt any legal actions. Michael explained that he would need to send a locksmith that morning to change all the locks on the house, to stop my daughter from entering freely and taking my belongings. He added that the locksmith would be accompanied by a notary to document any resistance or issues, which I appreciated as it showed his efficiency. Everything was set in motion. Around 11 in the morning, while I was sitting in the garden reading a book I found in the small library, my cell phone started ringing. At 27:40, it was Christina. I smiled slightly before answering. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Her voice sounded upset, almost hysterical. I told her I had just tried to use my card at the supermarket, but it was declined. I called the bank and they informed me that the account was blocked. I kept my voice steady and calm. "Oh, yes, I decided to make some changes to my finances. You know, people living in nursing homes don't need credit cards, right? That's what you said yourself, that I wasn't capable of managing my own affairs." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could picture her processing my words, trying to understand what was going on. "Mom, this isn't funny. I need to do some shopping, pay my bills. You can't just block my card like this." "Your card?" I repeated firmly. "Christina, that was never your card. It was an extension of my account that I covered out of kindness. But since you've decided I'm an incapable old woman who should be in a nursing home, I figured you wouldn't need my financial help anymore. Surely an independent woman like you can handle your own expenses." I heard her take a deep breath, trying to calm her anger. "Mom, don't be so dramatic. This is just absurd. I need that card." "What you should do, Christina, is learn to rely on your own resources." I replied with a firmness that surprised even me. Since your father passed away, I've worked tirelessly to support both of us. I sewed dresses until my fingers ached. I accepted any sewing jobs I could find. I never expected anyone to take care of me. It's now your turn to do the same. Before she could respond, I added, "Oh, and one more thing. I've also revoked the power of attorney I gave you. You no longer have access to my documents or the authority to act on my behalf." The scream she let out was almost animal-like. "How dare you? Who do you think you are to do this?" The question was so ridiculous it nearly made me laugh. I am Elizabeth Martinez, a 67-year-old woman who still has full mental and legal capacity to make my own decisions. I own my life, my property, and my money. And I will no longer let anyone, not even my own daughter, treat me like a disposable burden. And I hung up before she could continue screaming. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from pure adrenaline. I had spent years avoiding conflicts with Christina, always giving in and trying to keep the peace. But something had shifted inside me. Perhaps it was the cruel abandonment on my birthday. Maybe it was discovering how selfish she truly was. Or maybe it was simply that I now had the strength to stand up for myself. Whatever the reason, I was no longer the submissive, accommodating mother she once knew. Less than 20 minutes later, Christina called again. This time, her voice was different, more controlled, yet with a threatening tone. "Mom, I just spoke with Jason. We tried to get into your house to sort things out for the sale, but the locks have been changed. There's a notice on the door signed by a notary stating the property is under legal protection. Any attempts to enter without authorization will be considered trespassing." "What does all this mean?" "It means exactly what I said," I responded quietly. "This is my house. I bought it with your father 40 years ago. It's in my name, and no one will sell it except me when I choose to." Christina gave a dry, humorless laugh. "Mom, you're making a serious mistake. You need to sell that house to pay for the nursing home, or do you believe it's free? We were only trying to help you organize your finances." The obvious lie made me genuinely upset. "Christina, stop pretending this is about my well-being. I know very well that you and Jason plan to keep the money from the sale. I know you accumulated debts expecting that inheritance, but I have news for you. That inheritance will never arrive." There was a long silence. "What do you mean?" she finally asked in a tense voice. "I mean, my plans have changed. You'll see." I hung up again. That afternoon, Michael called me with updates. The real estate agent had already visited my house and taken professional photos. By Monday morning, the property would be listed on the market. Considering its value and location, I expect to receive serious offers in less than a week, he explained. He also told me that he had started preparing my new will according to my instructions. I am including the creation of the Dorothy Foundation to support elderly people who face family abandonment. Are you sure you want to allocate 50% of your estate to this? I asked calmly, fully certain. My sister dedicated her life to building that fortune through hard work and smart decisions. I want her legacy to help people experiencing the same as I am, so that no one else feels abandoned or discarded by their own family. Michael was silent for a moment. That is a very noble gesture, Mrs. Elizabeth. Your sister would be proud. His words touched me deeply. And that time was now. On Sunday morning, I prepared carefully for my grandchildren's visit. I chose a blue dress they always liked and styled my hair into a neat bun. Luke and Chloe arrived around 11 a.m., with Jason waiting in the parking lot, hesitant to come inside. The children hugged me tightly, and I felt tears welling up. I had missed them so much during these few days that seemed like weeks. Grandma, why are you here? Chloe asked innocently at age 12. Mom says you fell and need nurses, but you look fine. Luke, who was 15, looked at me with curious eyes. I chose to be honest with them, considering their age. Your mother thought it would be best for me to stay here, but the truth is, I can take care of myself just fine. This situation is only temporary. Soon I will be moving to a nice new place. I shared my plans to move into a smaller, cozy house with a garden where they could visit me. I didn't talk about the money or the disagreements with their mother. That wasn't for them to worry about. We spent 2 lovely hours strolling through the gardens surrounding the residence. Luke told me about his latest football game, and Chloe spoke about the book she was reading. When it was time to say goodbye, Chloe leaned in and whispered, I miss you, Grandma. Our house feels strange without you. After they left, I went back to my room, feeling torn between the happiness of seeing them and the sadness of the situation. Christina was lying to everyone, creating a false story where she was the worried daughter and I was the ill mother requiring institutional care, but the children weren't naive. Eventually, they would realize the truth. I only hoped that when that time came, it wouldn't hurt them too much emotionally. That afternoon, Michael called with news that changed everything. Mrs. Elizabeth, I have incredible news. A family saw photos of your house this morning and wants to make an immediate offer. They are ready to pay $480,000 in cash with no financing and close in less than 2 weeks. My breath quickened. Is this a real offer? I asked, surprised. Absolutely. I've already checked their financial position. They are a young couple with 2 children who have been searching for exactly that type of property in the area for months. I didn't hesitate for a moment and accepted the offer. We can proceed with the sale immediately. Michael chuckled softly. I'm pleased with your decision. I will prepare all the necessary documents for the signing. The family wants to move in as soon as possible. If you agree, we could complete the deal by next Friday. Less than a week from now, my house would be sold, the money paid into my account, and Christina would finally lose what she believed was her guaranteed inheritance. On Monday morning, as I expected, Christina arrived at the residence in a rage. The receptionist called to tell me that my daughter was in the lobby demanding to see me. I went downstairs calmly and without rushing. When Christina saw me, her eyes flashed with anger. What the hell do you think you're doing, Mom? I found out you put the house up for sale. When were you planning to tell me? I don't have to tell you anything, Christina. It's my house. I can sell it whenever I want and to whoever I choose. I looked her directly in the eyes as I responded. She took a step forward, her voice rising. That house is part of our family's history. I grew up there. Dad lived there. You can't just sell it to strangers. The hypocrisy was clear. Christina, that house stopped being part of the family's history the moment you decided I should stay in a nursing home. It stopped being so when you started clearing it out without my permission to take my belongings. Jason, who had come in behind her, tried to speak kindly. Elizabeth, let's be reasonable. If you need money to pay for this place, we can help arrange it without selling the house. Maybe on our own, or I cut him off with a raised hand. I don't need your help, Jason, neither yours nor Christina's. Actually, I am completely fine financially, better than you could ever imagine. The confusion on their faces was almost amusing. What are you talking about? Christina asked with suspicion. I have decided it's time to reveal the truth. Your Aunt Dorothy left me a substantial inheritance when she died last month. An inheritance you had no idea about. I saw the color fade from Christina's face. How much? She whispered almost inaudibly. I shrugged, pretending indifference, enough to ensure I never have to worry about money again in my life. Her expression changed instantly, shifting from shock to what looked like panic. Mom, I didn't know. If you had told me, she stammered. What would you have done differently, Christina? Would you not have left me in a nursing home on my birthday? Would you not have told me to rot in there? Just tell me, if you had known about the money. Would you have acted differently? The silence that followed spoke louder than any words could. That's what I believed, I said with real sorrow. You only wanted me for what you could gain, the house, the future inheritance, anything of material worth. But as your mother, I meant nothing to you? Christina reached out to take my hand, but I pulled away. Mom, please, we can fix this. It was a mistake. I was under stress. Jason and I are having financial troubles. And I stopped her again. Your financial issues are not my concern. You're adults. Find your own way to work through them. I turned to go back to my room, leaving them standing in the lobby. I heard Christina start to cry behind me, but I kept walking. For too many years, I had been swayed by her tears, her emotional tricks. No more. This time, Elizabeth Martinez was going to stand up for her dignity, no matter what it cost. The days after my meeting with Christina were a strange blend of inner calm and busy activity. While she tried to understand the news about my unexpected inheritance, I worked carefully with Michael to complete all the legal steps needed for my full independence. On Tuesday morning, I signed the sale papers for my house in front of a notary. The new owners, Mr. and Mrs. Andrew and Patricia Morgan, along with their 2 young children, seemed genuinely happy to buy the property. Patricia, a young woman in her mid-30s with bright eyes, expressed her gratitude warmly. Mrs. Elizabeth, this house is just what we have been searching for. We plan to raise our children here with lots of love. Her words brought a surprising sense of comfort to me. At least my home would go to people who would appreciate it and create new, joyful memories in those walls that had witnessed many of my important life moments. I sincerely wish them all the happiness in the world. The $480,000 was transferred to my account the same day, added to the $1,630,000 from Dorothy's inheritance. I now had a total of $1,780,000, a figure so large that I still struggled to fully grasp it. But it wasn't the money itself that brought me happiness. It was the freedom it symbolized, the chance to make my own choices without relying on anyone, to live with dignity on my own terms. Of course, Christina did not remain passive after finding out about my financial situation. The phone calls became nonstop. Over the next 3 days, she left 17 messages on my voicemail. Initially, the messages were angry, accusing me of selfishness and vengefulness. Then they shifted to desperate pleas, saying she and Jason owed $200,000 of various creditors. Eventually, they turned into emotional appeals, reminding me that I was her only daughter and that the grandchildren needed me. But what truly confirmed that I had made the right choices was a message I received on Wednesday from an unknown number. It was from a private investigator hired by Christina to determine the exact size of my inheritance. To my surprise, the investigator reached out to me directly to share what my daughter had asked him to look into. Mrs. Martinez, I thought you should know that your daughter commissioned me to examine your bank transactions. Out of professional ethics, I want you to be aware of this. I thanked him for his honesty and ended the call, feeling a mix of sadness and confirmation. Christina had gone so far as to hire investigators to monitor me carefully, aiming to find out exactly how much money I had and how much she could expect to receive from me. This was the final proof that her intentions had never been sincere. She didn't care about my well-being or our relationship. Her only concern was the money. That night, as I gazed at the moon through my room window at the residence, I made a firm decision. There was no going back. On Thursday afternoon, Christina returned to St. Joseph's residence, this time with a very different approach. She arrived carrying a bouquet of costly roses and a box of imported Swiss chocolates. Her expression was carefully composed, showing regret that seemed too perfect to be sincere. She found me in the garden, reading beneath the shade of a tree. "Mom, can we talk?" she asked softly, almost like a child. I indicated the bench beside me without speaking. Christina sat down, placing the gifts between us like peace offerings. "Mom, I've thought a lot these past few days. You're right about everything. I behaved terribly toward you. I was selfish, cruel, and ungrateful. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I am asking for it anyway." Her words sounded polished, well practiced, Yet her eyes revealed the truth. They continued calculating, measuring, and searching for the right angle to manipulate me. Christina, would you be here if I were truly a poor old woman with no house and no money? I asked calmly but firmly. She blinked, surprised by the blunt question. Of course I would. You're my mother, she replied. But I raised my hand to stop her. Don't lie to me anymore. Don't lie to yourself. We both know the answer. If I had not a single dollar, I'd still be lying in this nursing home without your concern. I saw her mask start to crack. Frustration was beginning to show through her attempt at repentance. Mom, Jason and I are in serious trouble. We owe $200,000. The banks are threatening to call in our debts. We lost your house. The credit cards are blocked. We have no way to get money. We just need a temporary loan. We will pay you back everything. That was the true reason she had come. She wasn't here to ask for forgiveness. She was here to ask for money. I asked sincerely, how did you manage to accumulate $200,000 in debt? Christina looked down, her face ashamed. Personal loans, credit cards, a home equity loan we took out using your house as collateral 2 years ago when you gave me the power of attorney. My blood ran cold. She had used my house as collateral without even consulting me. She nodded slightly. We thought we would eventually inherit it anyway, so it didn't matter. The logic was so twisted it left me speechless for a moment. They had mortgaged my assets, my home, trusting I would pass away soon so they could inherit it and pay off their debts. It was as if they had planned my life and death like pieces on their personal financial game board. Christina listened to me very carefully, and I said with cold calmness, I am not going to give you a single dollar. Not now, not ever. You and Jason are responsible adults. If you have accumulated irresponsible debts, you will need to find a way to settle them yourself. Her expression changed instantly. The false regret vanished, replaced by genuine anger. You have $16 million, and yet you won't help your own daughter. What kind of mother are you? She yelled, forgetting that we were in a public park where other people were walking. I am the kind of mother who worked tirelessly until her hands ached to give you an education and a better life. I am the kind of mother who sacrificed everything for you over 42 years. And I am the kind of mother who will no longer let you manipulate or use her. Christina suddenly got up, causing the roses to drop to the ground. This isn't over. I have lawyers, and I will fight to claim what is mine. I am your only heir. I watched her from my seat, feeling oddly calm despite her threatening words. You are my only heir, past tense. Just last week I signed a new will. 50% of my estate will go to the Dorothy Foundation, which I established to assist elderly people abandoned by their families. The remaining half will be divided among various charities. You will receive only a letter explaining the reasons behind my decisions. Her face turned pale. You can't do this to me. Her voice was barely a whisper, almost a choke. I can, and I have. Michael, my lawyer, ensured everything is completely legal and final. Even if you decide to challenge it in court, which is your right, it will take years, and you'll spend more on legal fees than you could hope to gain. Well-constructed wills are very hard to dispute. I rose to my feet and looked her straight in the eyes. 42 years, Christina. For 42 years, I've tolerated your selfishness, your demands, your lack of consideration, always excusing you, always forgiving you. But there are limits. Christina began to cry, real tears this time, mixed with genuine despair. Mom, please. They're about to seize everything. Jason lost his job 6 months ago. We are surviving on savings that have already been exhausted. We feel lost and uncertain about what to do. For a brief moment, I felt my determination weaken. After all, she was my daughter. I had carried her in my arms. I had watched her take her first steps. But then I remembered her words on my birthday. Rot in here, you miserable woman. I recalled the carefully planned cruelty when she abandoned me. Christina, you will need to find work, both of you, just like ordinary people do when they have debts. Reduce your expenses, live simply, and pay slowly over time. That's what I did when your father passed away and we had no income. Many people do this every day. It's not the end of the world. It merely requires effort and humility. She shook her head, unable to believe there would be no financial help. You don't understand. It's too much money. We can't pay it off with regular salaries. Then you will need to negotiate with your creditors, seek legal advice to reorganize the debt, or possibly declare bankruptcy if necessary. There are options, Christina, but none of them involve my money. I picked up my book from the bench, ready to go back to my room. Mom, wait, she called out desperately. There's something else you need to hear. I'm pregnant, 3 months along. You're going to be a grandmother again. She touched her belly in a protective gesture that seemed practiced. I felt a tightening in my chest then, but I stopped myself from feeling anything else. A baby, another grandchild. Yet even as I absorbed the news, a part of me couldn't help but wonder about the very convenient timing of this pregnancy. How long have you known? I asked slowly. 2 weeks, she answered quickly. We wanted to tell you sooner, but all this happened. 2 weeks. She knew. After she sent me to the nursing home, she knew. And yet, it didn't change her actions or her cruel words. Christina, if you are truly pregnant, I am happy for you, and I hope the baby is born healthy. However, that doesn't alter what exists between us. A baby should never be used as a tool for manipulation or as a way to demand money. That child will require responsible parents who work to support him or her, not parents waiting for someone else's inheritance. I saw her begin to protest, but I continued. When the baby is born, if you and I have managed to rebuild a real relationship based on mutual respect rather than money, we can discuss how I might be involved in his or her life as a grandmother. But first, you need to prove to me that you have truly changed. I walked away, leaving her standing in the garden among the fallen roses in her tears. Every step felt heavy, but I knew that surrendering now would undo everything I had worked towards in the past few days. It would have meant returning to the same harmful pattern, where Christina did whatever she pleased, and I simply accepted and forgave without any consequences. Not anymore. This time, there were clear boundaries that no one could cross. As I packed my suitcase that night, preparing to leave St. Joseph's residence the next day, I thought about everything that had happened. In just 10 days, my life had changed completely. I had gone from being a woman abandoned in a nursing home to taking control of my future with endless resources. I had moved from being a victim to becoming the author of my own justice. And most importantly, I had regained something I believed was lost forever, my dignity. Michael had found a perfect house for me in a gated community with round-the-clock security. It had 3 roomy bedrooms, a bright living room, a modern kitchen, and a small yet lovely garden filled with flowers. He also hired Martha, a 50-year-old nurse experienced in elderly care, to live with me as a companion and helper. Not because I truly needed medical assistance, but because having someone trained nearby would be comforting and bring peace of mind. On Friday morning, as the car Michael arranged waited for me at the residence entrance, I said goodbye to Rose and a few other residents I had shared these unusual days with. "Take care, Elizabeth," Rose said, hugging me close. "You are a brave woman. You've inspired me to talk to my son about some things we needed to clear up." Her words filled me with warmth. If my experience helped even one other person to stand up for their dignity, then something positive had come from all of this. As the car drove away from St. Joseph's residence, I looked back at the building one last time through the rear window. I'd only been there for 10 days, but it felt like months. 10 days that changed my entire life. During those 10 days, I learned it's never too late to stand up for what is right, set boundaries, and demand the respect I deserve. Christina thought she was punishing me by leaving me there. Unknowingly, she had given me the push I needed to finally break free from the emotional burdens I had carried for decades. Now, on my way to my new home, with my new life awaiting me, I felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. I was uncertain about what the future held. I didn't know if Christina would truly change or if this separation would last forever. I wondered how Luke and Chloe would react when they grew old enough to understand everything. But one thing I was absolutely sure of. Elizabeth Martinez would never again be the submissive, accommodating woman who allowed herself to be overlooked. It was finally time for me to start living for myself. My new house in the Alia community met all of Michael's promises and even more. As our car moved through the security gates and along the tree-lined streets, I felt as if I was beginning a truly fresh start. The house, tucked away on a peaceful corner, had a white exterior with blue shutters and a front garden where yellow roses and jasmine flowers were blooming. Although smaller than my previous home, it held something unique that I had never experienced after Anani's passing. It was entirely mine, without the painful memories filling each wall. Martha awaited me at the door with a sincere and warm smile. She was a sturdy woman with brown hair neatly tied back in a braid and kind eyes that immediately invited trust. "Mrs. Elizabeth, welcome home. I have prepared everything according to Mr. Michael's instructions. I hope you will find comfort here." We walked through each room together. The master bedroom featured large windows that looked out onto the garden. The second was already arranged as a library with bookshelves waiting to be filled, and the third was designated for Martha. The kitchen smelled of freshly baked bread. "I thought you might enjoy something homemade for your first meal here," Martha said, pointing to the table where a golden loaf was steaming beside a vegetable stew. Her gesture touched me deeply. After days of eating institutional food at the nursing home, that familiar aroma brought tears to my eyes. That evening we had dinner together and talked about our lives. Martha had been a widow for 8 years and had no children, having dedicated herself fully to her nursing career. "I like taking care of people," she said simply. "It makes me feel useful." The first few weeks in my new home passed peacefully, in a calm I hadn't felt in years. We established simple yet comforting routines: breakfast in the garden when the weather permitted, walks through the neighborhood every afternoon. In the afternoons, I spent my time reading and organizing the Dorothy Foundation with Michael. During that period, I did not receive any calls from Christina. It was as if she had vanished completely from my life. While part of me felt sorrow over my daughter's absence, another part was thankful for the calm that distance provided. Luke, however, began writing me heartfelt, sincere letters, sharing details about his daily life, his worries, and his dreams of becoming an architect one day. In one letter, written 3 weeks after I moved, he admitted, "Grandma, I know something happened between you and Mom. She doesn't want to talk about it, but I hear her crying at night. Dad is working 2 jobs now, and we hardly see him. Chloe asks about you all the time. I miss you a lot, too." Those words deeply touched my heart. I chose to reply to each of his letters with the same honesty he showed me, adjusted to what a 15-year-old could understand. I explained that sometimes adults have serious disagreements that need time and space to be resolved. I assured him that my love for him and for Chloe hadn't changed at all, and that none of what was happening was their fault. I promised that when the time was right, we could see each other and have a calm, honest conversation. At the end of October, 2 months after moving into my new house, I received an unexpected phone call. It wasn't from Christina, but from Jason. His voice sounded tired and defeated. "Elizabeth, I know I have no right to ask for anything after everything, but I just wanted to let you know that Christina gave birth last night to a baby girl. Both of them are well." I felt my heart stop. My granddaughter had been born. A new life had entered the world, and I hadn't even known the birth was coming. "What's her name?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "We named her Elizabeth," Jason replied after a long pause. Christina insisted on the name. She said, "She wants the little girl to have her grandmother's strength." Tears started to flow down my face uncontrollably. Naming the baby after me was a significant gesture, a message I couldn't dismiss. "Could I visit them?" I asked, aware I was risking my heart once more. "Christina said she would like to see you," Jason admitted. "But she also understands if you choose not to come." I asked for the hospital address and promised to visit the next day. That night, I could hardly sleep. My thoughts darted between the excitement of meeting my new granddaughter and the fear of confronting Christina again. Would this be another attempt to manipulate? Was she using the baby as a way to get closer to my money? But then I thought of that innocent little girl who carried my name, and I realized I couldn't let my issues with her mother prevent me from meeting her. Babies deserve unconditional love, no matter the circumstances of the adults around them. The next morning, Martha went with me to the hospital. I carried a bouquet of white daisies, Christina's favorite flowers as a child, though I wasn't sure if she still remembered. At the door of the room 211, I paused before knocking, taking a deep breath. "Come in," I heard Christina's voice from inside. I stepped inside slowly, and the first thing I saw was my daughter in the hospital bed, with tousled hair and dark circles under her eyes, holding a small bundle wrapped in a pink blanket. "Hi, Mom," Christina said quietly. There was no hint of anger or desperation from our previous encounters, only tiredness and a look of genuine vulnerability. I moved closer to the bed carefully, as if any sudden motion might shatter this delicate moment. "Hi, honey." "Congratulations." I looked at the bundle in her arms and my heart softened completely. There, peacefully sleeping, was the most beautiful baby I had ever seen. She had strands of dark hair and cheeks kissed by pink. "Would you like to hold her?" Christina offered gently. I nodded silently, and with great care, I lifted little Elizabeth into my arms. She was so light, so perfect, so utterly helpless. As I gazed at her sleeping face, an indescribable feeling stirred inside me, a deep bond that only a grandmother can understand. "She's precious," I whispered, unable to tear my eyes away. She resembles you when you were born, her lips, her tiny nose. We stayed silent for several moments. The only sound in the room was the gentle rhythm of the baby's breathing. At last, Christina spoke, her voice trembling with unshed tears. Mom, these past 2 months have been the hardest of my life. Jason works 14 hours a day, sometimes at 2 jobs. I took a job as a receptionist at a dental clinic. I worked right up until the day I gave birth. We sold our car and moved into a small apartment. Creditors call us constantly. It's exhausting, humiliating, and frightening. I listened quietly, gently rocking the baby in my arms. But do you know what the hardest part is? Christina kept speaking. The hardest part is realizing I was right all along, that I had gone through my entire life expecting others to solve my problems. First you and Dad, then just you after he passed away. I never truly grew up because I always had a safety net. I knew that if I failed, Mom would be there to fix everything. Tears were flowing freely down her face. Now, when I placed you in that nursing home, when I said those terrible words, I did it because in my mind I had already turned you into an obstacle blocking what I believed I deserved. I didn't see you as a person, as my mother who gave up everything for me. I only saw you as an asset I could sell or liquidate. And her voice broke. That is unforgivable. I recognize that. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know that at last, I understand. I looked at my daughter. I looked at her carefully, perhaps for the first time in months. She had lost weight and new lines appeared around her eyes. Her hands showed signs of hard work. This was no longer the spoiled and demanding Christina who had abandoned me on my birthday. Genuine pain, responsibility, and motherhood had begun to change her, but it was still unclear whether this change would last or only be temporary while the difficulties continued. Christina, I appreciate your words, I said softly, gently handing the baby back to her. I believe these months of hardship have taught you important lessons, but forgiveness doesn't happen overnight. Broken trust takes time to heal, if it can be healed at all. She nodded, accepting my words without resistance. I know. I didn't come asking for money or help, Mom. I just wanted you to meet your granddaughter. I wanted you to know she has your name because I hope she grows up strong, like you. I asked about their plan to handle the debts. Christina explained they had arranged a 5-year payment plan with the creditors. It would be tough, but manageable if they both kept their jobs and lived very frugally. Jason had found a position as a manager at a warehouse, and she would return to the dental clinic after 6 weeks of maternity leave. My mother-in-law will watch the baby while we work, she said. We can't afford daycare yet. Before I left, I took an envelope from my purse that I had prepared earlier that morning. This is for little Elizabeth, I said, placing it on the table beside the bed. Don't open it until I'm gone. Christina looked at me with curious eyes, but nodded in silence. I said my goodbyes by kissing my granddaughter's soft forehead, and surprisingly, I also kissed Christina's forehead. Take good care of yourselves. And, Christina, I'm glad you're finally beginning to understand what it truly means to be responsible. Keep going. On the drive back, Martha noticed my thoughtful look. How are you feeling, Mrs. Elizabeth? She asked softly. Confused? I honestly admitted. I want to believe she has changed, but I'm worried about slipping back into old habits, being the mother who forgives everything without consequences. Martha nodded in understanding. Real change takes time, sometimes months or even years, but it's also true that motherhood can surprise us and help people grow in unexpected ways. That baby might be exactly what your daughter needed to finally mature. The envelope I left contained $10,000 and a note. The note read, "For little Elizabeth from her grandmother. This money is for the baby's medical emergencies only, not for paying debts or adult expenses. If I find out it's been used for anything else, that will be the last help you ever get from me. If you use it properly, it will show that you have truly changed. The choice is yours." I was aware it was just a test, but I needed to see if Christina would respect the clear boundaries or try to manipulate them again. Over the following weeks, I didn't hear from Christina. No calls asking for extra money, no thank yous for the envelope. The silence was striking, yet it also revealed a lot. Maybe they were honoring my boundaries, or perhaps they were simply too proud to get in touch. Either way, it was an improvement over the desperate, manipulative pleas they had made earlier. In the meantime, I continued to focus on the Dorothy Foundation. Michael and I worked hard to develop its statutes and objectives. The foundation would provide free legal advice to seniors whose families tried to exploit them, offer financial assistance for confirmed cases of abandonment, and run educational programs about elderly rights. The official launch took place in December, 2 months earlier than planned, because the demand for cases was so high. Elizabeth, I was told that there are 127 help requests waiting to be processed. Michael mentioned this during one of our meetings. These include cases of children who stole their parents' pensions, families abandoning elders in nursing homes without visits, and instances of financial and emotional abuse. It's heartbreaking. Each case reminded me that my own experience was not unique. Thousands of seniors face similar or even worse situations. Our foundation truly has the power to make a difference. One afternoon in November, while I was in the garden pruning roses, I heard the doorbell. Martha opened the door, and a moment later she appeared with a surprised look. "Mrs. Elizabeth, you have visitors," she said. "It's your grandchildren, Luke and Chloe." My heart skipped a beat. The children stood hesitantly in the doorway without their parents beside them. "Grandma," Luke said softly, his voice trembling, "can we talk to you?" I held them close, feeling how much I had missed them these past months. I took them to the garden, and Martha brought lemonade and cookies. "How did you get here?" I asked, feeling concerned. "We took 2 buses," Luke replied proudly, like a teenager. "Mom doesn't know we came, but we really wanted to see you." Chloe, age 12, took my hand. "Grandma, is it true that Mom did bad things to you?" "We heard Mom and Dad arguing. Mom was crying, saying she hurt you and that you might never forgive her." I chose my words carefully. "Your mother and I had serious disagreements. She made mistakes that caused me a lot of pain, but she's also trying hard to change and do better. Family relationships are complicated, children. They aren't always simple or clear-cut." Luke looked at me with his youthful but surprisingly wise eyes. "Will you forgive her someday?" The big question, literally. "I don't know yet, Luke," I answered honestly. "Forgiveness does not happen overnight. Your mother needs to demonstrate through her actions, not just words, that she has truly changed. At the same time, I need time to heal from the hurt she caused me. Both of these things require patience." Chloe rested her head on my shoulder. "We miss you so much, Grandma. The house feels empty without you, and although the baby is very cute, she cries constantly." I shared details about my new life, the foundation, and my future plans with them. Before they left, I gave them some money for a taxi, as I didn't want them to travel alone on the bus. I assured them they are always welcome to visit anytime. You are not responsible for what happened between your mother and me. I love you unconditionally. I hugged them tightly before watching them leave in the taxi. Their visit gave me hope. Regardless of what happened with Christina, I believe the relationship with my grandchildren can still be restored. That night, I was surprised to receive a text message from Christina. She wrote, "Mom, Luke and Chloe told me they came to visit you. Thank you for having them. Thank you for not speaking badly of me to them, and thank you for the money you left for the baby. It's still untouched. We will only use it if she needs medical help, just as you asked." It was a simple message, but it carried significance. It showed that at least in this matter, she was respecting the boundaries I had set. It was a small step, but still a step forward. In December, the weather grew unusually cold, and the Dorothy Foundation officially launched. The event took place in an elegant hall downtown, attended by local charity officials and media representatives. I felt nervous. I had never sought the spotlight, but Michael believed that my story could encourage other seniors to stand up against abuse. During my opening speech, I shared my story without mentioning anyone by name. I spoke about being abandoned on my birthday and feeling discarded by my own family. I also explained how an unexpected inheritance from my sister gave me the strength to restore my dignity. This foundation exists so that no older person has to feel alone or powerless in the face of family mistreatment. I spoke with conviction, emphasizing that everyone has rights, that they are valuable beyond their possessions, and that it's never too late to stand up for respect. The response was deeply moving. Several elderly attendees approached me afterward, with tears in their eyes, sharing their own stories of neglect and abuse. An 80-year-old woman named Anne embraced me, saying, "Thank you for giving us a voice." For years, I believed it was my fault, that I had failed as a mother because my son saw me as a burden. I told her it was not her fault that adult children are responsible for their own choices and actions. What I didn't expect was to see Christina in the audience. She was standing at the back of the room, holding little Elizabeth wrapped in a knitted blanket. Our eyes met and shared a long, meaningful look. She didn't come forward or try to speak with me during the event. She simply watched and listened to every word I said. When the ceremony finished and I started talking with those nearby, I looked for her, but she had already left. That night at home, I found a letter slipped under my door. It was from Christina. I opened it with trembling hands and began to read. Mom, today I heard your speech and I finally realized how much pain I have caused you. I didn't just physically leave you in a nursing home. I emotionally abandoned you long before that. For many years, I saw you as someone who provided resources, not as a person with her own feelings and needs. The baby in my arms is teaching me what it truly means to love without conditions. This has made me realize how much you loved me all along, just like that, throughout my entire life, without me ever recognizing it. The letter continued. I am not asking for your forgiveness, because I know I haven't earned it yet. I just want you to know that Jason and I are still working hard. In these 4 months, we have paid off $30,000 of our debt. The $10,000 you left for the baby remains untouched. Little Elizabeth is healthy and strong. She has not needed any medical emergencies. But your act of conditional trust taught me something important. That trust is built through consistent actions, not empty promises. I hope that one day I can earn back your trust. I read and reread that letter for hours. There was a noticeable difference in the tone of genuine humility that I had not sensed during our earlier meetings. Paying $30,000 over 4 months required real sacrifice, balancing 2 jobs and caring for a newborn, which demanded strict discipline and clear priorities. Perhaps, just perhaps, Christina was truly changing, but my wounded heart still needed more time and evidence before fully opening up again. Christmas was approaching quickly. Luke and Chloe visited me every 2 weeks, always with their parents' permission. They shared updates about their lives, studies, and friends. Chloe confided her dream to become a writer someday, and I gave her a laptop so she could begin writing her stories. Luke showed me his architectural drawings, detailed sketches of imaginary buildings, and I assured him that when it was time for college, the Dorothy Foundation would provide scholarships for talented young people. A week before Christmas, Christina called for the first time in months. Her voice sounded different, more mature and calm. Mom, I know you probably have plans for Christmas Eve, but I want to invite you to have dinner with us. It will be a simple meal, just pasta and salad, because we can't afford much, but we'd be happy to have you. The kids ask about you all the time, and little Elizabeth is smiling now. I think you'd like to see that. The invitation caught me completely off guard. I spent several days thinking about whether I should accept or not. I talked with Martha, who wisely told me, Mrs. Elizabeth, life is short. Holding on to grudges might protect us, but it can also turn us away from family. Your daughter is reaching out. It's your choice whether to accept or not, but remember that the children deserve to see their family together at Christmas. She was right. Luke, Chloe, and little Elizabeth were not responsible for anything. They should have their grandmother with them on such a special day. On Christmas Eve, I came to Christina's simple apartment with gifts for everyone. The difference from the spacious house they used to live in was obvious. It was a small place with secondhand furniture and thin walls, but it was tidy and decorated with handmade Christmas ornaments. Jason welcomed me with a shy, thankful hug. He looked tired, but there was a certain smile on his face that I hadn't seen before. Dinner was just as Christina had described: pasta with homemade tomato sauce and a simple salad. But the meal was not the important part. What mattered was sitting around that small table with my grandchildren, watching Chloe share animated stories, Luke talk about his upcoming football tournament, and little Elizabeth sleeping peacefully in her bassinet next to us. For a moment, just a brief moment, I felt that maybe, just maybe, the family could find a way to heal. After dinner, while the children played in the other room, Christina and I were alone in the kitchen washing the plates. We worked silently for a few minutes until she spoke. Mom, these months have been the hardest but also the most meaningful of my life. Working 12 hours a day, coming home exhausted to care for a baby, counting every dollar before spending it. It finally made me understand what you endured for years after Dad died. And I feel deeply ashamed for not appreciating it back then. I didn't reply right away, just kept drying a plate. At last I said, regret is important, Christina, but what really matters is what you do with it. If this pain helps you become a better person, a better mother, then it will have been worth it. But if once your financial situation improves, you fall back into the same old patterns, then nothing has truly changed. She nodded, accepting the honesty of my words. I understand, and I promise I will not go back to being that person. Before I left that night, I gave Christina an envelope. This isn't money, I explained, noticing her surprised look. It's a letter of recommendation I wrote. One of the companies connected to the Dorothy Foundation is looking for an administrator. The pay is better than what you earn at the clinic now. If you're interested, submit your application with this letter, but keep in mind it's not a favor. You'll need to demonstrate your abilities just like any other applicant. Her eyes filled with tears as she took the envelope. Thank you, Mom, not just for this, but for giving me another chance. I know I don't really deserve it. I looked at her with a mix of cautious hope and motherly love that could never fully fade. We all deserve second chances, Christina, but not third or fourth ones. This is your moment to show who you truly want to be. Don't let it slip away. The following months brought steady, ongoing changes. Christina received the administrator position, and her financial situation significantly improved. With her increased income, they were able to pay off their debts more quickly. She continued to visit me from time to time, always respecting my boundaries and never asking for more than I was comfortable giving. Little Elizabeth grew quickly and became more beautiful, and I saw her every 2 weeks to become better acquainted. The Dorothy Foundation thrived beyond my best hopes. Within 6 months, we had assisted 183 elderly individuals facing abuse or family abandonment. Some cases resulted in sincere reconciliations, while others led to necessary separations. What mattered most was that each person received the legal and emotional support they needed to make informed choices about their futures. One spring afternoon, nearly a year after my birthday at the nursing home, I was in my garden watching the Alis bloom when Christina arrived with little Elizabeth. The baby was now 8 months old and beginning to babble. Mom, I have something to tell you. Jason and I have paid off all our debts, the full $200,000. We are finally financially free. Her voice was filled with pride. I embraced her, genuinely happy for her accomplishment. I'm so proud of you, dear. You've shown a strength I didn't realize you had. She hugged me back tightly. I have it because I inherited it from you. It took me 67 years of your life and nearly losing your love to understand. But now I see it clearly. We sat together in the garden, with little Elizabeth crawling between us, and for the first time in over a year, I thought that maybe, just maybe, we had found our way back to each other. Not everything was fully resolved. Complete trust would take years to rebuild, but as I watched my daughter playing with her baby in my garden, hearing her genuine laugh and seeing the peace in her eyes, I knew I had made the right choices. Setting boundaries, demanding respect, and refusing to be manipulated. All of this not only saved me, but also gave Christina the opportunity to finally become the woman she was meant to be. At 68, I had learned the most important lessons in my life, that it is never too late to stand up for your dignity, that true love involves healthy boundaries, and that sometimes the deepest act of love is allowing those we care about to face the consequences of their actions so they can learn and grow. The story that started with abandonment and betrayal was moving toward forgiveness, but not through easy apologies. Instead, it was achieved through hard work, mutual respect, and both of us being committed to becoming better than we had been.